Hello and welcome back. I'm Barbara O'Neill. Today we're getting into the topic of conquering arthritis and skin disease. As we age, our bodies face new challenges, and dealing with conditions like arthritis and skin issues can be a big part of that. In this lecture, we'll look at how lifestyle choices affect these conditions and what you can do to manage and even improve your symptoms. We'll cover practical advice on diet, exercise, and other strategies that can make a real difference in your quality of life. Stay tuned for tips that can help you tackle these issues and enhance your well-being.
Alkaline-forming foods and the alkaline or the lifestyle habits that create alkalinity are basically the best way to conquer arthritis. But if you don't know what's causing the acid, how can you do that? So I'd like to begin tonight by showing you what are the things that can cause acid alkaline. And I'd like to use my dear mum's story as an illustration. So looking at the 8 laws of health, which are called the true remedies, pure air. When you're breathing in bad air, when you're breathing in mouldy air, when you're breathing in stale air, you are not getting what pure air contains, which is oxygen. And every single cell in the body requires oxygen to give energy. So, number one, it's important to get pure air. I also noticed when Mum was at Daisy's house, she put her in the sunshine every day. When the sun's rays touch the skin, they convert a form of cholesterol just under the skin to vitamin D. And vitamin D is essential in the assimilation of calcium. And our bones are not made of calcium. Our bones are made of 12 main minerals and 64 trace minerals. That's what bones are made of. That's why calcium supplements will not help to strengthen bones. So what will help to strengthen bones? What strengthens bones is weight-bearing exercises. There's your rebounding on your trampolines. Also, those minerals. Where do we find those minerals? In dark green leafy vegetables, and also in the Celtic salt, the Himalayan salt. You'll get that same balance and proportion of minerals. Most people are doing something which is what my mum was doing, and this brings to the third one. And what my mum was doing was something that she didn't realise. This is the law of temperance. To make it fit, I've split it into 2 bits. She was taking a lot of acid-forming foods. So what are the foods that have an acid effect? So the foods that have an acid effect on the body are the ones that have acid-forming minerals. So there's your chlorine and sulfur and phosphorus. These are the acid-forming minerals. And number one, I better make that look better. Number one is refined sugar. Now, Mum didn't eat a lot of refined sugar, but she loved her cups of tea. And every cup of tea, she put a teaspoon of sugar. That's a metre of sugarcane. That's actually a lot. And she also loved sugar biscuits. And she'd often send me down the street when I was a little girl. I was the eldest girl. There's my brother, then me, then 3 younger sisters, to buy a cherry ripe. I don't know if you have cherry ripes in Australia. It's like a chocolate bar with coconut and sugar and cherries in the middle, something like that. Mum loved cherry ripes. So she was certainly getting the sugar. We had meat every night. I'm a 5th-generation Australian, Scottish descent. Every night we had chops or sausages, mashed potatoes, frozen peas or beans every night of the week, except for Sunday. Then Mum would cook a roast lamb. So we had meat every day. She was also having another acid-forming food, and that is the aged cheese. In fact, I think every meal we either had meat or cheese. When meat breaks down in the body, it leaves a high sulfur waste. So 58% of the meat that is eaten is burnt as fuel. So that leaves a 42% waste, and that waste is a sulphur waste. Dr. Colin Campbell, in his book, The China Study, he shows very clearly, he said he could switch cancer cells on and off by the amount of meat and dairy products he was feeding the rats. And it was because of this high sulphur waste, because cancer thrives in an acid environment.
One major factor is the type of food consumed. Acid-forming foods such as refined sugars, processed meats and aged cheeses can increase acidity in the body. When the body processes these foods, it creates waste products that contribute to an acidic environment. This excess acidity can lead to inflammation as the body tries to neutralize the acid by pulling calcium from the bones, weakening them over time. Inflammation in the bones can also result from a lack of essential nutrients. For instance, while vitamin D from sunlight helps with calcium absorption, bones need a balance of other minerals as well. Without sufficient intake of minerals from vegetables and salts like Celtic or Himalayan salt, bones can become more susceptible to inflammation and disease. Another contributing factor is the presence of toxins and pollutants in the air. Breathing in poor quality air can lead to a buildup of toxins in the body, which can contribute to inflammation and exacerbate conditions like arthritis. Maintaining a balanced diet, getting adequate sunlight, and ensuring clean air can all help reduce the risk of inflammation and support overall bone health.
So the other alkaline foods, vegetables. Now I'm going to put one list of vegetables over on this side, but not everyone they are acid forming for. But if someone has gout or arthritis, they certainly sit on this side, and that is tomatoes. And it's also capsicum or red pepper. I'm not going to put them there because we never ate that. And we never ate eggplant, aubergine, but we ate potatoes every single night. My father loved mashed potatoes, so that's what we had. Every night we had mashed potatoes. Except for Sunday when Mum did the roast lamb, there'd be baked potatoes. So I will put over here as a side point for your interest that your bell pepper and your eggplant, do you call it eggplant or aubergine? Eggplant. Now I'm putting it here as our object lesson for arthritis, because if you don't have arthritis and you enjoy this food, it's quite possibly perfectly fine. But if someone has arthritis, they must stop. So as I look at the list that my mum was eating, she was eating everything that was creating an environment for arthritis to get out of control. Many people are sick through ignorance. They don't realise what they're doing is creating this. So all the other vegetables are alkaline, but these can have an acid effect on some people. And they specifically would be people with an inflammatory situation in their body, and arthritis and gout are definitely inflammation. So for interest's sake, the grains that are alkaline, we never had. We didn't even know they existed. So this is millet, quinoa, buckwheat. Didn't even know what that was. Spelt, kamut. Never heard of these things before. Also nuts. The nuts that are alkaline forming are almond and Brazil.
Vegetables can be beneficial for managing arthritis, especially when you choose those that are less likely to trigger flare-ups. For people with arthritis, it's important to be mindful of certain vegetables that might worsen their symptoms, like tomatoes and bell peppers. These can contribute to inflammation in some individuals. On the other hand, vegetables that are generally anti-inflammatory and packed with nutrients can support overall health and potentially reduce arthritis symptoms. Leafy greens, such as spinach and kale, are rich in antioxidants and vitamins that can help manage inflammation. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower are also good choices as they contain compounds that may help reduce joint pain and inflammation. Including a variety of these supportive vegetables in your diet can contribute to better joint health and overall well-being. Balancing your intake and focusing on foods that are known to have anti-inflammatory properties can make a difference in managing arthritis.
Fruit as a whole has an alkaline effect, and so unless someone has a yeast presence in their body, then the sugar in the fruit can feed it. So they totally changed their diet. They decided to become plant-based. They got to know how to do the legumes. They started to have 2 meals a day, and because they were retired, they had their main meal at 9 and they had their other meal at 3 in the afternoon. They found that very easy. And also having the breakfast at 9, it allowed them to do a little work in the garden, especially in the summer months before the heat of the day came. They started to go to bed earlier. They started to do some gentle exercise, and it was easy now to drink water that they weren't drinking their teas and coffees. They loved God very much already, but they never realised the effect of the body on the mind, and we're going to be looking directly at that tomorrow when we go to the mind. After 6 months, they both noticed that they'd lost weight. They'd both lost, in fact the lady lost more, but she was carrying a bit more. I think she lost something like 30 pounds in 6 months. The man lost weight. Without them almost realising it, the lady started to notice her hands weren't hurting anymore. She started to play the piano a little bit more. And as time went on, after a year, the lumps on her hands were going down. They were starting to feel good. They looked at each other and said, "What are we doing in this aged care facility?" They booked out of the aged care facility. They bought a motorhome. You call it an RV, is that right? They bought like a motorhome, and they decided to travel around Australia. And they got up to mid-north New South Wales, which is where Misty Mountain Health Retreat is. They drove in, they booked in for a week at Misty Mountain Health Retreat. And the whole week they were there, the lady just had this smile on her face. She said, "I'm in my early 70s now," and she said, "I have to tell you, I feel better now than I felt in my 50s. She totally conquered her arthritis. They heard the information and they just implemented it. And she said to me, "Do you think I could start eating a little bit more tomato?" And I said, "You can try. Who'll tell her?" Her body will. So what she found is she could have half a tomato 3 days a week. And her body said, "I can handle that." She said she still couldn't handle a bell pepper, so they left that. She said her husband loves potatoes, but he has twice as much as she has, but she just keeps it at a smaller amount. She said eggplant, they might have it once a month or something like that. And her body said, "Yeah, I can handle that." It's important to listen to the first whisper, because if you don't listen to the first whisper, the body will little by little start screaming. And when the body starts screaming, that's when it starts doing damage. And I know with my mum, when she first started to get her pains in her hands, she went to the doctor who gave her some anti-inflammatories. And then as it got worse, then he put her on prednisones and cortisones. Well, drugs never heal. They never heal. In the little book, Ministry of Healing, the author says, "Let the physicians teach the people that restorative power lies not in drugs, but in nature." Is that right? Yeah, we've got a body. We looked at the immune system the other night. What an incredible immune system that we have. It's got everything that we need to be able to heal. But when you keep silencing the knock, this is what drugs do. There's the knock. What a drug does, what's still happening? It's still knocking, but you can't hear it. And then the damage begins. I stayed in a home recently that had a little 2-year-old. And the little 2-year-old would say, "Mum, Mum," "Yes, in a minute. Mum, what's happening after 10 minutes? The child's screaming. And I'm sitting there thinking, go to him. So you see it with children. My babies hardly ever cried. You know why? Because when I heard the first whimper, I'd tend to it. And think of that with also the body. Listen to the first whisper. Because your body's trying to tell you something.
Fruit generally has an alkaline effect on the body because of its mineral content and low acid levels. When you consume fruit, your body metabolizes it and produces alkaline byproducts, which can help neutralize excess acidity in the body. Fruits like melons, berries, and citrus have high levels of potassium and magnesium, which contribute to this alkaline effect. The overall impact of fruit on the body's pH balance can vary depending on the fruit and an individual's overall diet. However, most fruits tend to have a more alkalizing effect compared to processed foods, which are often acidic. Eating a variety of fruits helps maintain a balanced pH, which is beneficial for overall health. Despite their general alkalizing nature, fruits contain natural sugars that can potentially feed yeast if it's present in the body. For individuals with yeast overgrowth, managing sugar intake is important to avoid exacerbating the condition.
No, for a sore wrist, we're going to do a bigger cloth. A sore wrist, you have a cloth that big. And remember, you can tear up your old tea towels, your sheets that are starting to tear apart. And you grate the ginger in the middle. And what you would grate in the middle, the amount of ginger would be about a teaspoon. It's quite wet, so you can spread it out. You can spread it like you'd spread peanut butter on bread. You spread it out. And then you pull this over, I call it east, west, north, south. And so now you are left with a little package. And so that will come down to a package that'll be about this big. And one side will have all the layers, that's the top side, and the side that will touch the skin is the single layer. And you lay it over, and then you cover that with plastic and bandage it on. Now, if there's a lot of inflammation in that joint, within half an hour, the skin will get very hot. One lady said, "My skin's burning." I said, it actually isn't burning. It feels very hot. If it's too uncomfortable, take it off. But what that heat on the skin means is that the inflammation is being drawn out of the joint. And I always say to people, yeah, skin's burning, but how does your joint feel? And they go, "Oh, actually, it's moving a little bit because the inflammation has been drawn out." Most pain is due to inflammation. And a man told me this story. He said, "I had gout in my second toe next to my big toe." So he said, "I put a little ginger poultice on it." And he said, it got very hot and the pain went, but then it seemed to go into my next toe. So I put a ginger poultice on that toe overnight and it went, and then it went to the next toe. And it seemed to jump the toes. I said, "Did it go to the next foot?" He said, no. One lady told me she had a very sore knee and she put the ginger poultice on. And she said she had it on for about 5 hours in the afternoon. And she said it got very, very hot, but my knee felt good. It could move a bit. So after my shower, I put another ginger poultice on. And I had that one on all night. And she said, and then in the morning, I had a shower, washed it off, put another ginger poultice on. And then in the middle of the day, she took the poultice off and her skin was bright red and blistering. She said, "What have I done?" And I laughed. I said, "You've overdone it." I said, "It will not hurt you. You just can't do another ginger poultice until that skin settles down." You see, it drew so much inflammation out that it irritated the skin. So what do? My suggestion is you do a ginger poultice for a couple of hours in the afternoon and then take it off. Now, we usually do it in the afternoon at the retreat, and so by the time they're going to bed, we say to the person, "How does it feel?" And if they go, "Oh, it's a bit hot," well, we'll take it off. And if sometimes they say, oh, I feel so good, can I please leave it on? We say, sure. But you don't do it all the next day. So don't overdo it. So you might do it for a couple of hours, and then what you can do overnight, and this can certainly be very soothing, is the castor oil compress. So the castor oil compress, it can be used again and again and again. And with the castor oil compress, I'm going to put this sideways. So what you'll do with the compress, there'll be a few layers of cloth. If it's old toweling, it might just be 2 layers. And if it's sheeting, you might have 4 or 6 layers. And then you pour the castor oil on, and it'll make like a bubble on top. It is so thick. So you just sit that there for maybe 10-15 minutes till it soaks through. And when it soaks through, it'll come out a little bit further. And then when you apply it to the skin, the heat of your body will thin the oil a little bit more, and it'll come out a bit more. And you cover that with plastic, and you bind that to the area. And because it is a compress, it's just a vehicle to hold the oil to go into you. Castor oil penetrates deeper than any other oil. It can break up scar tissue, it can break up bone spurs. So it's very good at arthritis and that inflammatory condition there. So my suggestion is castor oil every night. You don't want to put too much on because you don't want leaking castor oil through the sheets. It's not a happy situation.
For ongoing relief, you can switch to a castor oil compress overnight. Use a few layers of cloth, pour castor oil on top to create a bubble, and let it sit for 10-15 minutes to soak through. Apply the cloth to the skin, cover it with plastic, and bind it in place. The heat from your body will help the oil penetrate deeper, addressing scar tissue and bone spurs that contribute to arthritis. Apply the castor oil compress nightly, but avoid using too much oil to prevent leakage through your sheets. For best results, use the ginger poultice in the afternoon for a couple of hours and then switch to the castor oil compress overnight. This approach helps manage inflammation and supports healing in the affected area. Thanks for watching. If you've found this video on managing arthritis and skin disease helpful, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Remember, taking small steps towards better health can make a big difference. See you next time.